Hey guys, this is Chris and welcome back to another edition of Hacking IELTS. In this episode, we're going to be seeing footage once again of J.R. Lee here in Dubai. Let's see how he handles the writing section of the exam and what tips he can pass on to you guys. Okay, so we've talked about the reading.
Yes.
Let's move on now to the writing section. So you took the general test. Task 1 will be substantially different for the general test as opposed to the academic. So what did you have to do for your task 1 writing?
Okay, for my task 1 writing, the instructions was that you have a friend in another country, and you would want to be able to find a job or work on that country. So the question or the requirement is that write to a friend and tell him about this and that. Ask him things like salary, something like that. So it's clearly given on the testing booklet that you need to be able to know the salary, you need to be able to know the working number of hours. But I think those are just example, but you can add more information. I mean, you can add more questions. So basically, it's like I could say it's a friendly letter. It's like writing literally to a friend, inquiring about how is it going to be there, what is the weather, what are the work timings, how is the culture, for this kind of profession, what will be the salary. So things like that.
All right, so it's an informal letter.
It's an informal letter, yes.
And what were the requirements in terms of word length?
I think it's 150.
Right.
150 to 200.
Yeah,
So
150 words or more.
Yes.
Yeah. And then how many paragraphs did you end up writing for it?
I wrote 3 paragraphs, and at the end of the exam, I was writing. I was counting the words, and it's about 200.
Nice.
It's about 200
Great
words.
strategy. Great thing to
Yes.
do
Yes.
if you've got the time, making sure that you have enough words.
Yes.
Because if you don't,
Yes.
you're going to drop by a band.
Yes, I know, exactly.
So what would you recommend for people who are taking the general test and task 1 writing?
Okay, because task 1, I could say is like pretty manageable. You'll be able to just um, get through this. Task number 2 is quite difficult because it asks for your opinion.
It's very different.
It's very different. Okay, it's like writing an essay.
It's more academic.
Academic. So the question that was given to me was that there are people who studies at home, and there are people who studies at universities, because homeschooling has been very popular these days, right? If you know that, especially for kids. So some parents opted for their children to be homeschooled, while others are still thinking of the traditional way. And then you are given like a question, which one is better? Explain. So it's kind of difficult to elaborate if you're not familiar with this kind of topic.
For task 2,
For task
you
2.
had a prompt,
Yes.
right? So you had like some information in a rectangular box.
Yes, yes.
And in that box, do you remember at the end of the topic with the type of schooling, what was the last sentence? Like, what was the instruction given to you? Did it say, like, to what extent do you agree or disagree? Or did it ask the advantages or disadvantages?
What it asked was that, in your own opinion, which do you think is more advantageous between the 2 options? Is it
Okay.
homeschooling or the traditional university thing where, I mean, people go to school
So
literally
in
go
your
to
own
class.
opinion,
In your
which
own
one is
opinion.
more advantageous?
Yes, you have to choose. Literally have to choose which one would be better than the other.
Okay, so how did you handle it in terms of structuring your essay?
To be honest with you, it's that part of the test where I find it really difficult. All right, because for me personally, because I chose university, because it's clear on the instruction you have to choose. Okay, so that's what I did.
All right. So one thing I'm going to ask you, and this is something that I think a lot of teachers try to get their students and test takers to do, is plan. So did you have any kind of planning before you went into the essay? Or did you just kind of think about it and look at the prompt and like, okay, I can handle this, and then and just start writing? Did you plan it all before actually attacking the writing?
Yes, you definitely have to do that.
Great.
So what I did is I went to several materials online. Um, and what I found out is that there is this grading system that is being done for the writing exam. So
Right.
what examiners are looking for basically, because you have to be cohesive in your paragraph, in your sentences, it shouldn't be all over the place, right? So when you structure your paragraph, it's like you're given the task to be a director in a movie. So you need to be able to tell the story from beginning to end in such a way that at the start of the movie you get your audience interested, and then there's this climax at the end. So you need to be able to cohesively write it all down.
Okay.
It's going to
So how
be
did you structure your plan before you started doing the actual test two writing?
Yes. So, what I did was to first discuss what are the advantages of homeschooling, and then what are the advantages
Nice.
of the traditional school. And then I also pointed out what are the disadvantages of the two. And
Okay.
then at the end of the essay, give my opinion or take on, for me, this would be a better option.
With the planning, were you actually writing out full sentences or were you just quickly jotting down like bullet points,
Uh,
taking notes?
No, I'm writing really sentences, not just bullet points. I'm explaining in detail, because what I'm thinking is that since the writing test requires 300 words,
250
250,
or
okay,
more? Yeah.
or more,
Right.
so I have to be really conscious that I'm able to write it down.
All
I
right.
mean, meet the expectation that it should be more than 250 words.
How much time did you take then for the planning stage?
I did the first section pretty quick, okay, and then I spent a lot of time during the second part of the writing test. So I would say like 40 minutes. I took 40 minutes.
I think that the planning stage doesn't have to be too long before getting into the
Yes,
writing. Some
yes,
people might take 2 minutes, others might take 5 minutes. You could even
yes,
take up to 10 minutes if you
yes,
wanted to,
yes.
and then do the formal writing.
Yeah.
But as long as you're taking a significant amount of time to, first of all, read, analyze the prompt, really understand the topic, because sometimes people, they don't understand the prompt, the topic, and they think they
Yes.
do.
They think they do.
And
That's
then they just start writing
dangerous. Yes,
and they're going to drop a band because they're not giving the examiners
exactly.
what they want.
Yes,
So you have
yes,
to make sure you read and analyze that prompt, make sure you've
yes,
planned appropriately, accordingly,
yes.
and structure as well. So, how many paragraphs did you have for test two?
It's a lot. I think it's 4 to 5 paragraphs, because I mean, what I did was that you need to be able to on the first paragraph I was structuring the question in a different way, something like that. That's my personal strategy. And then on the following paragraph, give the advantages and disadvantages of the two options. And then on the fourth paragraph, be able to determine what would be my selection between the two options. That's what I did.
And your word count, what did you have in
Yes,
total?
300. So for this one, 300. So I was pretty confident that I was able to write more than 250. So at the back of my head, I was like, okay, I was able to meet this word. I remember that because I counted it twice, because I want to make sure that, I mean, what will happen is that even if you have like cohesively written everything in order, but if you don't meet that 250 words, I guess you'll also lose a point from there.
Yeah, definitely they'll dock you, they'll
Yes,
drop a band.
you'll definitely drop a ban.
There
Yes.
actually is a strategy for that as well, for
Mm-hmm.
the word count,
Mm-hmm.
because sometimes you're going to run out of time and people
Yes.
aren't going to be able to do that word count.
Yes.
So, one strategy for that could be counting your lines.
Yeah.
And you could get in the habit of saying, okay, I'm going to write like 10 words for each line.
Yes.
And then you could
Yes.
count out 30 lines. And then
Ah,
at the end of
yes.
the 30th line, You could just mark an X. X marks the spot.
Yes.
And then
Yes.
you know, if you've done like an average of 10 words per line, 30 lines, you know you've hit 300. So
Yes.
then you know that obviously you're over 250.
Exactly.
So
Yes.
that could be a time saver. That could be a bit of a strategy.
Yes.
And same thing for task one as well.
Yes. Chris,
15 lines.
before we end, can I say something?
Sure.
You have to write legibly. Okay,
Oh yeah, very
guys,
important.
don't forget about that, because I mean, if the examiner will not be able to understand what you've written on the paper, I think you will fail this writing exam, because I struggle on that area too.
So true.
So, so I had to really practice on how to be able. I wrote in print because we were told that you
Great.
can either do it cursive
Right.
or print.
Cursively.
So
Yep.
I choose to write in print.
Good idea. And that's a great tip. I'm
Yes.
glad that you actually
Yes.
recommended this
Yes.
for people because I
It's
have this
pretty
problem.
basic, right?
I have this problem when I'm
Okay.
marking my students' work
Yes.
and it's illegible. I'm like, I can't
Mm-hmm.
mark it if I can't understand what it
Yes.
is.
Because as a examiner, you cannot just assume that is the exact word that was written, right? Because you need to be able to read it.
Needs to
So
be legible, needs to be
legible.
clear
Yes.
and clean.
Yes.
Practice, practice, practice.
Yes.
So that was a really great tip that you had regarding writing legibly. And I know a lot of the students that I've had is something they need to work on.
Yes.
So make sure, guys, that you're writing legibly, practice your writing, make sure that everything is clear so that you don't have any problems with the examiner marking your exam.
Yes.
So any other tips or strategies you'd like to give for task 2 writing?
I think that's about it. Just have to practice as well. But that's about it.
Great. All right. Well, I hope that you guys found this helpful and that you learned something from J.R. Lee and how he handled the writing section of the exam. In our next episode, we'll see how J.R. handles this speaking component of IELTS. Don't forget to visit our courses online at hackingielts.com. We also have our exam guide available on Amazon and Apple Books. Take care, guys, and catch you in the next one.